cheat a little for today's coaching because I didn't prepare anything, but I was talking to a good friend of mine and he made sure to deliver. So we got plenty of hands to go through. We got NL 40K plus action of one of the biggest winners of the last 5 years, I can say, on the poker sites that everyone can play. My plan for today is just to give you an insight into just one session. Let's scroll a little around that, and then I want to show you guys. So this is, don't forget the graphs, this is filtered for VPIP, is true. So maybe this here. So yeah, we have a nice little graph with a winning red line. It's actually just 13,000 hands, which is interesting to see because this is what it's all about on the high stakes, to find good games and get some hands in, and then you have that massive variance. So actually we are talking here about, in just 8,000 hands, a little 800k upswing followed by a little 600k downswing, and I'm pretty sure he did not really play worse in the second half than in the first half. So just that you have an orientation of where the hands are coming from that we will take a deeper look at today. Let's jump into the action. I can tell you he's playing pre-flop charts against reasonable players. Most of the time when there's NL 40k running or higher, it means that there is a big recreational on the table. So we will see or might see big deviations. Whenever we see that, you can be sure that we are playing against the recreational player. We play with a 40k stack, it's 200, 400, no ante, people are playing super deep. So far we don't know who the recreational is, and we just play VPIP hands. Alright, so we see a little more than a min raise from under the gun. I'll just describe the hands until we get to the spot where we have a decision. And we defend. I guess it's kind of standard. It's already kind of close if you look it up depending on the rake structure. But since we play very, very high stakes, the rake, even on GG Poker, is in big blind per 100 not the highest. So we need to defend hands like that. We shouldn't discuss about that, I hope. And we see a flop. So, and face a continuation bet, a quarter pot continuation bet. Let's just stick to that pattern of how are the buttons on the stars. 1 is fold, 2 is call, and 3 is raise. What is your first instinct answer here? This is such a beautiful hand. Difficult, depends on position of villain versus button. It's call, raise. We have a spot now. They are unknowns for us, so it's tough. We see a lot of 3s, 2s, and 1s, all of it. So this means it's a beautiful hand. I absolutely feel you. I think everything is fine, as Geduld bitte is even saying. Important here, we have a backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw, plus especially important, the overcard to the jack. Having the queen of hearts way better than having the 10 of hearts, obviously. So yeah, I think understanding that all options are fine and maybe even relying on some reads and whether this guy is over c-betting, over folding is beautiful. And Dudi goes actually for the race. Spicy 3, winning poker mindset, I think we like that. We want to play some red line. This guy calls. And the turn is a queen. I think here we have a rather clear spot. We need to evaluate the turn card. The turn card, being a Broadway card, is beautiful for under the gun. Just connects with all his, let's say, obviously he makes new sets. His whatever ace king with the backdoor gets stronger. He has the queen, jacks, and so on. So it's just a good card for him, which means we will bet lower frequency on average, but we will keep a big sizing. And into the big sizing, using that, we want to polarize. We want to have stronger value hands. Queen, just a random queen is not strong enough. Villain starts betting small, which is fine, whatever. Any sizing will be fine. We have a clear call. I think I don't need to ask you for that. The deuce of hearts on the river, an interesting card. We can have quite some flush draws. It makes sense to check call some flush draws as well on the turn. It's the first hand of the session that we VPIP'd. And we get into a spot like that, facing that 3 times river jam. So yeah, if we put that into the solver just because of the queen of hearts, I think it will be more or less indifferent. Having a queen is obviously beautiful. I think the queen of hearts doesn't matter. I think he needs to have like a king high flush plus to get the maximum from a queen high flush for that overbet jam. The queen is good for the boat blocker. But yeah, we are facing a 3.5 times pot jam after showing lots of interest in the pot. Obviously, you can make some red line with bad calls as well, or like not losing red line. But in all the games I know, this is a bad call. But yeah, it's in theory not too bad. So here we go. So we have an interesting start. Next one. Big blind versus cutoff, 2.2x raise, queen 3 suited. So again, on the close side, definitely we're going to defend that on those stakes. Not because it's high stakes, just because the rake relatively is small. So we need to defend a bit wider. And we face that bet. Again, we have a backdoor straight draw and a backdoor flush draw. I think it's a rather clearish fold. Just the hand is way worse compared to the last time. Obviously, it's not a 1 card backdoor flush draw, but a 2 card. So if we hit spades, it's really good. The straight is not really cool. We need a 6 and a 4, plus we don't have an overcard. So that overcard, which means 3 direct outs against the top pair, as it has been from the Jack 7 deuce, should be quite a big deal. Right, so the queen 3 suited here is facing a third pot bet that GTO Wizard suggests, but you see it's a fold. It's not a call. It's a fold. Right, queen 6 gets already better. Keep an eye on the overcard. It's not just the backdoor flush draw. This is quite important, right? Something like this happens. We check raise big, especially with that ace. You can see how many ace X you're folding out. Finds the fold. Let's keep going. Next one, 7-8 offsuit. 2.5x open raise from the button. So far, so standard. Small blind call, always interesting. And we get a queen jack 3. All right, so the hand doesn't get trashier than that. Right? Already, if we take 6-7 instead, we have a nut backdoor straight. So 7-8 is kind of the worst hand possible with no backdoor. Whenever possible, I can tell you that he's never betting big here. There's lots of reasons for a big bet, but he plays small only and just allows himself to keep his entire range together and split on the turn, and then into multiple sizes. That's kind of his game plan, if you want to say so, which definitely works against the big blind. I think it's a stretch to do it against the small blind, so it would be interesting who the small blind is and how much we know about his range. There can definitely be queen jack off in there, king 10 offsuit, ace 10, so lots of connectivity. Maybe the small pockets as well, so he has pocket 3s full frequency, very likely in quite a tight range. And then if you bet the weakest hand you have, then you're just betting too much. So I can't say it's a mistake, but I can say he's likely overdoing it here. Either on purpose or not, depends on the villain. Like just preparing to play turns and rivers perfectly is kind of, I think this summarizes it pretty much. He's fine to do a small flop mistake to then gain the advantage of playing turns and rivers perfectly. All right, so he starts to play on the turn on those advantage boards, exactly. So he gets check raised. Obviously, we are not doing anything stupid. Keep it simple, all right? Ace 10 offsuit, cut off flat. We have nothing. There's a 7 on the board and a 5 on the board. This triggers, for all the members who watch my videos, this is a range check spot here. The cutoff hits 2 sets. He has very likely in his range. That's enough for having a range check here. I think this is what he does. Another check. And now we see a 9. So I'm not questioning everything, where I think there is one clear best option, like here for the check on the flop. I'm not asking, but now things get interesting. So we might have king 10, we might have king queen. We obviously still have pocket 5s, pocket 7s, pocket jacks, queens, kings, aces, if we are talking about range check. Villain can have 6s, can have 8s, he can have ace queen, he can have, I don't know, ace 8 suited. Now the 9, we kind of connect with that. A check call really sucks. And he went for an interesting quarter pot. I think this is not really a thing with that hand. If we go down to on a hand level, we can say, okay, he keeps something like ace 8, ace 6 in there. He keeps king queen, king 10, queen 10 in there, stuff he kind of dominates. Does that make sense? Does he get to showdown versus those hands? I don't know. For me, this is already a sign that this guy might likely be the weaker player. He calls, river is a 6. So this guy might still have pocket 6s, something like 7-8 suited, pocket 8s, 9-8 suited, and the 6 I think is a very bad card for us. We have all the broadways. If this guy is a weaker player, maybe he doesn't bluff with king queen. So I think we have a rather clear check, having some, not showdown value against someone who bluffs correctly, but we have showdown value against someone who might mess up. So we see that check, and we obviously don't try to catch this one. Okay, so again, interesting turn bet, and I think this is a rather straightforward river give up, and important to not say like, oh, those guys are always going crazy. Maybe this is exactly the spot where we need to give up instead of going crazy. Ace queen, under the gun open, cutoff, 3-bet. So far so standard. We get the call. We flop ace high, ace king 9. We see a quarter pot c-bet, pretty standard. We can work with something like 10% bets on that board as well, but it's more, it doesn't really matter. I like the small bet more on rainbow boards because they cannot navigate with their pocket pairs. Here against the smaller bet, he's just calling with club, folds without, and we lose some value from like the flush draws, backdoor flush draw. It's easier for him to counter those very small bets on a flush draw board. But that's my more personal taste, how you want to build up the game. All right, so hand is over. Let's see this one. We get a 3x open raise from someone who sits there already with 350 big blinds. King queen, I think not many options but calling. Small bet, king queen high, clear call. Check, clear showdown value, check back. King, no kicker, right? It's, yeah. I think there's no value in that. And yeah, I think this hand plays itself. I would be too greedy to go for a crazy. It's so easy for him to sit on that ace and go for the bluff catches. So there's not much reason to try and value bet a king. Villain is check calling his king 4. This is not something we get value from. If the kicker plays king queen is a value bet like this here, it's just a clear check. Yeah, easy hand, I would say. All right. Pocket tens, 3-bet, small blind versus button. Cold 4. So interesting, always the sizings here. 1000, this is 2.5x. This is 11 big blinds. This here is 23 big blinds. So depending on that sizing, I personally make the difference between how much am I calling into like have a big calling game and protect that a little with aces traps and stuff like that. And the bigger it is, the more I go for the dead money and jam a little more. So we see the fold here. Everything is kind of fine, right? This range is like 10s or 9s plus, I would say. And then like the suited broadways, ace queen offsuit plus, something like that. If we decide to play, like as you say, or as Skradat, Czech Republic says, the 23 big blinds for me, I would go for 100% call, to be honest, with 10s. Don't see the reason for anything else. Against the biggest nits in the world, I would be folding, but we won't find those here. All right, so yeah, I expect the call, and we see a jam. There must be in-game reasons. Certain player, I don't know. Doesn't make sense from theory, I think. It can never be horrible. It can never be great. It's one of those spots. The question is he doing that often enough with his ace-queen offsuit? Maybe sometimes has ace-jack offsuit, something like that. Hands that perform well against pocket tens, but have a clear snap fold. So it's about our fold equity. And yeah, this is a clear, I mean, not a huge, but a rather clear deviation. Yeah. And bink, another board, aces, as always. Okay. Okay, ace 5 of clubs then. Interesting three-way spot. We got a button flat. Off the guide, still the same table. It's all on the same table. It's a one-tabling session, I can tell you, or it feels like. Always the same names. Or maybe it's 2 tables and every second hand, this table, who knows? So button is likely the recreational. Queen, Jack, 7. What's your play? So someone already planning on the button bet for the check raise. Got the check, check, check. All right, so Geduld bitte here with a reasoning that's something like a deuce instead of a 7, adding a backdoor straight, adding maybe less sets for the button. Makes it better for us to c-bet. 2 against recreational, 1 versus rec. Check call is okay. So yeah, I think anything is fine. The 3 is out of here. Multi-way, if we want to bet, it's a small bet. So check is definitely not a mistake. Depends a lot on that recreational. If this is a recreational that you want to have a value hand against, I prefer the check right away instead of building a pot out of position where lots of turns you need to fire again if it's a king, if it's a 10, if it's clubs, and then you build a pot where you don't want to. But yeah. So we see the check. It seems like we have a good spot to dodge some action here. Okay. Same spot, like 5-6 offsuit, ace-8 off. You can't argue with rake structure or anything. This is a deviation. This needs to be the weak player that you want to play against, right? This is interesting. Maybe the second part for the key takeaways. It's way less about the spots that no one cares about or are close, 0 EV in the chart. You need to get to play with a player where the money is coming from, especially on low stakes, because all the other players are insane sharks. So take your freaking go 2-3 pips too wide. This is the guy who apparently will mess up and you want to fight with him. Ace-8, check, check, here we go. Let's see what happens. I think only check is an option really. And interesting. Interesting. So we block the ace highs. Often the lookalike, when we have an ace in our hand, we will check all ace highs here. It's a good reason to also check this hand. Here, just making that read that this guy is the recreational, I think it's a massive mistake to check this one. So the question is now, how much would you be betting? Maybe it's a recreational where we can just bet exactly the amount he will be calling with ace highs when we have an 8, and bet exactly the amount you will be folding to if we don't beat ace highs. So this would be the best play then, if that exists. And I'm like also in the, let's say, 66 to 75 to 80% camp. Like pot seems a little ambitious, who knows? So yeah, maybe 3 times pot is the correct answer. We don't know. Maybe it's the perfect size. Maybe he makes ace king fold. Let's see. But versus fish, they don't care whether it's 2 BB or 5 BB in such a small pot. Yeah, I think it's a lot about dynamics. If it's one tabling super high stakes, it's a lot about, is this guy pissed right now? Is he not pissed? Does he want to own someone or not? Right? This gives room for those overbets. If this guy is pissed, maybe 3 times pot is the best. If there's nothing happening so far, he might just fold it because he has nothing in his eyes, and he gets the fold. All right. 3-bet from the small blind. We call pocket 9s, no other options. Here we go, the out of position 10% bet. I think raise is the worst option. If you want to raise, you can take something like deuces and 3s. Just you want to unblock something like 10-9, 9-8 suited hands that are folding to a raise. Against 10%, I think actually you cannot really fold anything out of your range. Maybe the 5-6 of hearts. So you need to continue. It's the price you gotta pay. If you fold 9s here, you are overfolding the shit out of it. Okay. 3 of diamonds. I guess it's not a recreational because the cutoff here is the recreational, but obviously this gives incentives to the hijack to also build a flatting range to play against the recreational. So this is kind of a weird spot that comes up in those lineups that everyone kind of plays out of range. And yeah, 4-way, jack, jack, 10. I think you want to be a little stronger than that. I expect a check 4-way. A 9. I expect a check. And somehow I've seen that hand. I expect a check because we have lots of hands that are better. You have like random king X suited that are way better with some outs. I know that he ends up betting small here, which I do not really understand. It doesn't fit to what I've seen of that game in the other spots, but it did work out. So I think nothing to go too much into in depth with some theory in a 4-way pot here with absolute dog shit. But okay, did work out. 9-8 suited. We get the call. small bet, 8x plus should be enough. 8x trips should be enough for range betting here when they are unconnected. So he does that with all his hands. Turn 10, keeps his range together. I think no splits, 75% sizing only. I think this is now trying to show you guys a little what is going in his strategy brain, that he actually cuts down his options here. Or I can tell you that I talked enough with him, that this is like, okay, here's the option check or 75%, 8-9 suited with those trips. Sure, you can sometimes trap trips, but they will bet 75%, and I'm very, very, very certain about that. And then on the river, he will split and have some all-ins, some 75%, some 150%. This is kind of the game tree he's building. C-bet bigger versus recreationals, better on paired boards. Not necessarily, you know, let them catch up with something, give them some rope. I think that's fine. Recreational is not recreational there. If someone is triggered by that and sometimes check raises, you want to go as small as possible. If someone plays fit or fold, maybe you want to put in some checks. If you just crazy overfolds, yeah. I don't like the word they in that context of playing NL 40k plus. So we see that 75% that was predicted and nothing else happened. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that one. See you in the Pokercode Discord and in the video section as soon as possible. Would be really happy if some of you who aren't a member yet get a member, and the others obviously stay with us. And see you for the next one. Bye bye.